to the Cut to the Chase Sports Podcast. We bring unique insight and analysis behind your favorite teams at the collegiate and professional levels. I'm your host, Chase Younts. We're back at it again. Got Brady King on the other side. Brady, what's going on?
Man, not too much. Haven't been on here in a minute. Not since the debacle that happened a few weeks ago. But honestly, not much. Home for break. Now we got basically a huge week ahead of football. And it's very exciting that we're here, and it's all you can do is sit back and wait and watch and hope for the best.
Yeah, there's talking about football in general. I mean, there's a whole stretch of around 11 days straight where there's just football games being played, and starts on Thursday. Should be very, very fun to watch. But on Friday, the start of the 12-team college football playoff. So that's a new era that will be beginning there in the state of Indiana with two Indiana teams. Indiana and Notre Dame will play each other. Notre Dame's a 7.5-point favorite. That'll be on Friday, December 20th at 8 o'clock p.m. This will be the first time that ABC will be calling or hosting, whatever you want to call it, covering a Notre Dame game in over 30 years. It's always been NBC there in South Bend, but ABC will get their chance to do that. And regardless of what network it is, this is a great matchup to watch out for, Brady.
Yeah, no, it's a big game. It's, a game you don't see often. They haven't played in like 30 years or so. It's been a while. I think it was in the 90s the last two times these two teams played. But it's very interesting that the first 12-team playoff game is between these two teams. Like, you would never expect Indiana to make any type of playoff, but no, they're legit and they're here. And I think it's going to be a great matchup. I think I've been wanting to see this matchup all season. These are two teams that have dominated their schedules except for one game, both of them. These two teams have really just destroyed most of their opponents and, looked extremely dominant. And it's time to see who's legit and who's not. And, or they both could be legit, and we could see an amazing game from start to finish. So I think there's a lot of big storylines in this game and quite a few good matchups for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and you look at the two quarterbacks in this one, again, both of these guys have had a lot of experience playing college football when it comes to playing this level of college football. This is new for a lot of these quarterbacks that are going to be in the playoff. But I mean, again, Curtis Rourke just under 3,000 passing yards. I remember he had that injured thumb, around late October and everything else. But he's had a great season: 27 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's been slinging the rock the entire season. Then Riley Leonard, 16 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, doing it a lot with his legs as well. So he's a dual threat quarterback. But again, we have two guys that are going into a huge matchup. Again, we know who both of these teams are because they've dominated their favorable schedules, but to see them clash against each other will make this very intriguing. How do you see the start of this game going? Like, do you see Notre Dame trying to set the tone? Do you see Indiana just going out, just throwing it all over the yard? Like, do you have like a prognostication of what you think you could see happen in the first couple minutes of the game?
I have a feeling that Indiana is going to come out swinging big time in terms of throwing the ball. I think they're going to be throwing it down the field. They throw more sideline go balls than anybody else in the entire country. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to see a lot of that. A lot of, they're going to be aggressive. They've already seen, that Ohio State game. I'm sure Curt Cignetti didn't even know what to expect because he never played against a team of that caliber with Indiana, although he had them rolling. And, he came in and he didn't know what to expect. But now he sees that, not saying that that Indiana can't play better than they did that day, but they're going to have to really try and throw the ball down the field to beat some of these elite defensive lines. And in Indiana or Notre Dame has a good defensive line. So I think they're going to test Notre Dame secondary, especially with them not having Benjamin Morrison. So I don't see why you wouldn't. And I definitely think that Curt Cignetti will come out with that game plan.
It would have been fun to see if Morrison being out there, obviously, if, he wouldn't hurt. I mean, he's, projected first-round pick, everything else, one of the best corners in college football out there. But, just seeing how Indiana plays so aggressive down the field, using the sideline as well, a lot of times it's just that go ball, that streak. I mean, they will toss it down there and they will make their players, hey, go in a one-on-one. I'm better than your guys, so let's go make a play. So that's the big thing there. But again, I mean, these run games for both of these teams, definitely not something to be slept on. Again, Justice Ellison for Indiana is 10 touchdowns on the season rushing and averaging around 5.5 yards a carry. But on the flip side with Notre Dame, I mean, you can't discount the legs of Riley Leonard. Maybe it might not be some very flashy runs, but it's just those 3, 4, 5 yard gains when it's a third and short or in the goal line situations that, I mean, it cannot go unnoticed. And that could be the difference in this game for Notre Dame, especially in red zone execution.
Yeah, no, definitely. Riley can definitely he can move. He's definitely more of a runner than a thrower to this point in his career. He's definitely effective with his legs, and he definitely could change the game. I think he really is probably the X factor. If Riley Leonard's legs are minimized and stopped, then I think Indiana probably wins. If Riley Leonard is able to go off on the ground, it's going to be really hard to beat them in South Bend.
Again, Riley Leonard, 721 rushing yards and 14 touchdowns this year. So, Brady, do you think Riley Leonard's going to get the legs active and going, or is Indiana going to have an answer to it?
I think Indiana's going to have an answer to it. I think Kurt Cignetti knows that Riley Leonard's legs are his main attribute. I don't think he can throw very well. I really don't. I think he's a bottom 2 to 3 passing quarterback in this playoff. So, but he's a great runner. So I think that they're going to leave their DBs on an island, and I think they really will stack the box. I do think Indiana will stack the box, and, I think they'll not completely shut down Riley Leonard's legs. He might have a couple plays here and there where he gets loose and scrambles for a first down, but I don't think he's going to have a big running day of like 100 yards or anything like that. So I think Indiana will do good in that aspect of the game.
Are they going to win?
I do think they're going to win. I got Indiana in this game. This is my biggest upset of the week. I think Indiana goes in there into South Bend and wins.
Well, you got a score for us?
We'll go 26-20.
26-20. All right.
26-20. Indiana's going to get it done in a great game in South Bend.
I'm going to go opposite of you on this. I think Notre Dame's got a lot to prove being back in the playoff. I know, obviously the few times they were in it before was a semifinal game and they went out there and got absolutely destroyed. I mean, they played some tough, stuff like Alabama and Clemson those couple times down there in Dallas. But I think it's going to be a very good game to watch. I think Notre Dame's going to get the run game going, but it might not be from Riley Leonard. I think it's going to be Jeremiah Love that actually gets his legs going. I mean, again, it's 15 touchdowns and 949 yards on the season. Says he's healthy, so I think we're going to get a healthy dose of what he can do. And I think it's going to be a lower scoring game than what the spread is. I think it's going to be under the spread. The spread is 8.5 Notre Dame or 7.5 Notre Dame, excuse me. And the over under is 51.5. I'm going to go on ahead and say Notre Dame wins it 24-19, 24-19. So I think it'll be a game more in the trenches. I think Indiana's going to hit on some deep balls down the field, and then I think they're going to also miss some opportunities as well. But I'm excited to see what this battle of Indiana looks like in the first 12-team college football playoff, and that'll send things to Saturday. Again, Saturday you've got these 3 playoff games, and then you also have 2 huge NFL games. So with you, Brady, being a Steelers fan, you got Steelers-Ravens. The Steelers are trying to win their division against the Ravens in Baltimore, and then right after that is Tennessee, Ohio State, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I mean, back to back. That's a crazy time right there. But you start at noon. All right. So SMU makes it to the field after losing to Clemson. They made that huge comeback, which pretty much got them into the postseason. They're taking on Penn State, noon game on TNT and HBO Max, so that's a new one. Both teams 11-2. Penn State favored by 8.5. Drew Aller just announced that he's coming back for a senior year at Penn State, so we'll see more of him in the blue and white this year. 21 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He looked inconsistent in the Big Ten championship, but he made some very impressive throws, I must add, into that. Obviously, just wasn't enough against Oregon, but what are you looking forward to in Drew Aller this Saturday?
I want to see if he can play a complete game and lead them to a win in a big game, because that's one thing that Drew Aller has arguably not done in his Penn State career. I think he's been a good quarterback for Penn State over his course of his career. Better than Sean Clifford. He's been an upgrade. He's been one of their best quarterbacks in years. However, it's going to be interesting because there was this thought idea of him crumbling and being very nervous in big games. And while I haven't seen that this year, he still hasn't won those big the two biggest games he played in this year. They lost, and then same with last year, Michigan and Ohio State. He has four losses as the starter of Penn State. So 5. I forgot about the bowl game, but that didn't really count. Yeah. They had like 15 people opt out. But 4 true big game losses. He's 0-4 in my eyes. So it'll be interesting to see if he can come out and just play consistent. We all know he probably has the best arm in the entire country. If he was consistent, he'd probably be the number 1 pick or the first quarterback selected, which there's still a group of people that think he could have been, although apparently he was told not to go to the draft and come back for senior year, probably to clean things up and not play better in some of these big games. So I definitely am looking forward to see if he can put together a big game and beat SMU.
On the flip side for SMU, again, there's been a lot of buzz around Kevin Jennings this entire season, the sophomore quarterback from Texas, 6 foot, 189 pounds, smaller guy, but he can sling it around the yard, 3,000 passing yards, 22 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. A lot of people are voting him for next year as one of those guys that could be on the watch for the Heisman. I know Travis Hunter wanted this. Thoughts on that real quick? Ashton, Travis, what thoughts on that real quick?
Yeah, I think I probably would have given it to Genty if I had my vote, but it's definitely a difficult choice. I don't think there was one that was a clear winner. Obviously, I think Genty's a better running back than Travis is at wide receiver or corner, obviously, but you definitely have to include the fact that he was a wide receiver and a corner. It definitely matters that he plays, both ways. So I would have given my vote to Genty just because I think he was going to break the record and be the all-time single-season leading rusher. And obviously you can make the argument that he was in the group of 5, but he did that against Oregon when they played and narrowly lost that game. And he did that. I think he's going to do it in the college football playoff. So I think he probably should have won, but I don't have a problem with Travis winning either. He had a good year.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that just it's either that one way or another where it's like, Genty got robbed and everything else. Those are 2 great players, and again, having an impact on both sides of the ball. 1,400 snaps this year by Travis Hunter is insane. And it's not just playing 1,400 snaps. He impacted the game on both sides of the ball, legitimately. So it's definitely something that cannot go under the radar with that. But just wanted to get the thoughts on there. But yeah, so Kevin Jennings, a lot of people next year could see him maybe on that in that race because of him being a younger player and having such a good season. But SMU, I'm not gonna say we don't really know a whole lot about them, but they're going into an uncharted territory as to playing a late December game in northern weather.
Yeah,
on the road. How do you feel about them?
I think they'll handle that solidly. I think I'm not too worried about that because I think I don't think their play style is like they're not an air raid offense. They were air raid and primarily pass heavy. Now they can throw, but they also they like to run the ball with their quarterback, and they like to run the ball in general. So I think they'll be fine. I'm not super worried about the weather aspect of the game, but playing in this environment is going to be something because I don't think they've played in anything even remotely close to what they're going to see in Happy Valley in terms of how loud it's going to be. So Kevin Jennings is going to be in for a new world of noise and an atmosphere in this game.
Yeah, and that's why handing the ball off to Brashard Smith is going to be big. Again, 1,270 yards, 14 touchdowns, averaging around 6 yards a carry. So, again, playing that balance, but when it's time for Jennings to throw the football on the first third down of the game, how are they going to react? What's the yard and distance going to be? All these factors coming into play. And I think the big thing is going to be when it comes to that, how can SMU win on first and second down on offense? And can they make Drew Aller indecisive?
Right.
Because we've seen an indecisive Drew Aller and an indecisive Drew Aller. I mean, any indecisive quarterback is not a great quarterback, but an indecisive Drew Aller is not good. Okay.
Yeah.
Like it's not. There's little moments where Drew Aller does something where it's like, he makes a play a third grader would probably make. But then, he'll make a throw where he zips it across the middle in between two defenders, and you're like, that right there is why he's the first quarterback off the board in 26. But it's the consistency from Drew Aller, but at the same time, for SMU on the flip side, can they win first and second down, keep the sticks moving, can they make it third and manageable, and everything else, and open up the entire playbook? But the Penn State is favored by 8.5, over under 53.5. I'm gonna say Penn State wins. I'm gonna say they win by 10. I'm gonna go 27-17. I'll take the under on it.
Yeah. I like that pick. Although I'm also going with the upset once again in this game.
I would not mind that at all.
I think SMU is going to win against Penn State. I think Penn State blows another big game. I think that late in the game, they're going to fold. I think Penn State isn't used to playing in close games. And when they do, they don't play well in close games. Now, they did beat Minnesota and USC close, but I'm talking more of these high-profile close games than I am, teams that aren't on their level. The teams that are on their level, which obviously SMU doesn't have the recruiting prowess Penn State does, but I think they're a good team. They're a really good team. I do think they were the best team in the ACC this year, personally. I think Clemson outplayed them that game, but I think SMU is the best team in the conference. I think they're going to win down the stretch, and I think people will be quite infuriated with Franklin going into the offseason once again.
I couldn't even imagine the scene, what would happen if they blow this game at home in front of over 100,000 people. Right. James Franklin walking off the field, I don't even think he would make it off the field.
No. I think this is I think it's going to be bad. I think James Franklin knows it would be bad if he loses, which is why I think they're going to lose. I don't think it's, Penn State should win. They should, but I don't think they will, personally.
So Brady's out here predicting doomsday and Happy Valley. Wow.
Two straight upsets the first two games.
Yeah, there you go. I like the craziness there. But I mean, I don't think we're going to be predicting an upset in this one. I wouldn't think. Texas, Clemson, interesting one. Clemson plays their way into the college football playoff, wins the ACC against said SMU. They're 10-3. They're 10.5-point underdogs going into Texas. Texas again is. Don't get me wrong. Their only two losses are to Georgia this year.
Right.
Okay, like they lost at home and they basically lost. They lost a virtual road game to Georgia. So as long as they don't see Georgia, I think Texas is fine. But you never know at this rate. Cade Klubnik, though, this season, we got to give props to Cade Klubnik, man. 33 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, over 3,000 passing yards. He's thrown the football pretty well, to say the least. Like he's thrown around the yard and everything, and done a good job, as well as their running back Phil Maffa, 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns. This Clemson team, I haven't watched a whole lot of them this year. Brady, I know you've kind of seen bits and pieces of them. How would you describe this Tigers team?
Different than years past because they can actually throw the ball. The past couple of years, it's been bad because they could not throw at all. Their receivers were awful. Their quarterback play was bad. They could run the ball a little bit, but their offense was just terrible and their defense was good. I would flip that. I don't think their defense is amazing this year. Like a lot of people thought they would have a top 5 to 10 defense. I don't see it. I think their offense is good. Their offense is looking a lot better, but their defense has fell off a cliff in terms of, not necessarily like, they've had some decent outings against some of these bad ACC teams, but they give up points quite frequently. And we saw that week 1 against the Georgia team that isn't that good on offense. They get 34 hung on them. It's weird because Clemson has young wide receiver talent. Their 2 freshmen, TJ Moore and Bryant Wesco, are good players. Maybe arguably their 2 most gifted receivers. Antonio Williams is good as well. He's a junior. So they have 3 good receivers that are ready to come out there, and they're going to try to throw the ball in Texas. There's no doubt. That's going to be their game plan. They're going to be more of a throw-reliant team in this game.
And on the flip side for Texas offensively, we've seen Quinn Ewers, especially in that last game against Georgia. There were some very questionable throws that he was making around the yard, and it,
No
kind
doubt.
of like head scratching moments and everything else. Obviously, Texas's guy is Quinn, but there's just something in me as a fan that would just love to see Arch Manning play. But that's just as a fan. But
100%.
It's interesting though. Texas has some very good receivers on their roster where I think they could take advantage of the Clemson secondary. It's just going to have to be Quinn Ewers playing consistent football, getting the ball out of his hands quick, get it to the playmakers, and the playmakers do what they do best, make plays. So with Texas, what kind of day do you see Quinn Ewers having?
I think Quinn Ewers is going to have a pretty good day. He usually bounces back after struggling because, he's had these games definitely where he struggles and is out of sorts. So I think Ewers, especially with the recent rumors that he's going to enter the transfer portal after the year and not go to the draft and go to Oregon, all that stuff. I think he's going to play. I think he's going to play a good game, and I think he'll be locked in. I think when he's in a rhythm, he's a very good quarterback, if not the best in the entire country, at his best. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does against a Clemson team that snuck into the playoff and is known, every year for their defense. So it's definitely not an easy task. Clemson has some athletes out there, but I do think Quinn is going to look better than he did last week. And we also have some breaking news. Aaron Nolan has entered the transfer portal. Very, just something I had to bring up.
Saw that as well. Flash across the phone, but
I
mean. Probably expected. I mean, someone was going to have to go in that quarterback room. You would, assume. So just wow, that's some. I mean,
wow.
We'll talk about Ohio State's quarterback situation for next year. After this season, they still have a game to play on Saturday, which we'll preview in just a moment.
Definitely.
But yes, Aaron Nolan entering the transfer portal. We'll see where he plays, how we'll monitor that, and see where we're going. And best of luck to Air going forward on his next journey in college football.
Definitely.
So Texas opened up as 10.5-point favorites. The total points was 54.5. Now they've moved to 11.5-point favorites, and the total points have gone down from 54.5 to 51.5. Does Texas win? Do they cover the spread, Brady?
Texas wins the game. It's just hard for me to pick Clemson on the road and against this Texas offense. I also don't think they cover the spread. I'm thinking a 37-17 win for Texas. A nice handle victory at home, and they're gonna, they got reward. Texas, let's call they got rewarded for not having a single good win on their entire season. Texas A&M was a decent win, but other than that, they had no good wins, and they got rewarded for it.
Yeah,
they got rewarded for it. So
they did. Yeah, I mean, they've got a pretty favorable path.
Man, if I could switch Ohio State's path with Texas's, that would be beautiful. But it's not going to happen. So Texas will coast to their game against Arizona State in the second round.
Yeah, that 5 seed was a pretty coveted thing we were looking at the entire time. Didn't know the ACC champion would be a 12 seed, but again, I digress. I'll agree with you on that. Texas, I think they're going to win. I think they're going to score. I think they're going to score 40. I think they're going to win 41-14. I think it's going to be a blowout. I think Definitely. Texas is going to come out. I think they're going to be like, we have some things to clean up. We're going to clean up those things, and we're going to get better at a lot of other things and keep doing the things that we're good at to a higher rate. So I got 41-14. I think it's going to be closer in the first half. Clemson's going to kind of hang around, but I think Texas is going to figure it out, and I think they're going to roll to a pretty comfortable victory. But something that we're going to be uncomfortable over on Saturday night, the 8-9 game, Tennessee, Ohio State. This is the first game that Kirk Herbstreit is going to call for the Buckeyes in, I think since the playoff game against Georgia.
Yeah.
In 22. Yeah. I mean, they had the new media rights deal and everything else, but that's here nor there. Tennessee, Ohio State, 8 versus 9 matchup. 2 teams that are 10-2, didn't play in their conference championships. Please pronounce Nico's last name for me correctly, because I've heard it like 7 different ways.
Yeah, so I'm fairly sure it's Iamaliava. Nico Iamaliava.
Nico Iamaliava. Okay.
Yeah,
The announcer to me
Iamaliava.
should have had this down, but Nico Iamaliava
I
versus
believe
Will
that's how you
Howard.
pronounce it. Definitely difficult to pronounce since a lot of people just kind of call him Nico and just kind of hope people assume who they're talking about.
Yeah,
But,
and it's interesting the age difference between him and Will Howard in this game is
yeah,
pretty wide. Pretty wide.
it's a vast difference.
Definitely is, but they're playing in the same game. Ohio State hasn't played a game in about 3 weeks, same as Tennessee. Obviously, the last time we played, it was the game against the team that resides up north, and stuff didn't go well. The immense amount of pressure on Ryan Day is so real. It's so real. Like, you can look at other reports here and there, have your thoughts and opinions, but it's almost out of this world. Because are you going to be there Saturday?
I'm not going to be there. I have a ticket, but I'm selling it. I've been to enough big games to where if we win, I don't care that I missed it. It's like one of those things, where I'd rather just watch all the games at home.
Yep.
And then watch that at night. And it's not really the fact. I mean, the fact that it's cold plays a part in not going, but I don't really mind it that much. It's more of the fact that I want to watch all the other games. And after that Michigan game, it's hard to want to. Obviously, I want them to win, and I hope they win it all. But it's hard to support a team when there needs to be change and it hasn't been made. And so the amount of money is spent on that, and after losing to Michigan 4 straight years, and I feel like I don't really want to go to any big games until Ryan Day either gets fired or wins a national championship.
You sound that sounds like the Bengals when you take the names out of it, but that's another story. Wow, this is a big game. I mean, you're looking at Tennessee. Nico's had a good season, 19 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, but we're looking at them running the football. Dylan Sampson. I mean, wow, that's pretty impressive stuff that he's doing there. 1,500 yards, 22 touchdowns. Got to have an answer for the run game, to say the least. And then on the flip side for Ohio State, obviously throwing the footballs has been a forte this season, but getting back to the run game, maybe not running it inside so much. Again, we're not playing against Michigan's 2 first-round picks in the middle, but have some variation in the run game would be nice. Chip Kelly. But the Tennessee pass rush against the Ohio State offensive line draws concern to me. Brady, what's the thing that you're looking at the most in this matchup?
I think it's definitely Ohio State's game plan. I mean, it's crazy to think, but when you look at the 2 teams' talent, one team is better than the other. It's like it's clear one team's at home, one team has better players, one team is just a better team, but there are certain psychological things that doesn't mean we're gonna win this game. Ryan Day is gonna have all this stuff in his head. How everyone knows how tight he gets. All these crazy things happen to him in some of these big matchups, especially after that game. Who knows what the team morale? Obviously they should want to win the Natty. It's all ahead of you, but I don't know what those players are thinking. It's hard to get in their heads, and then I think it's absolutely vital. There's going to be bad weather. It kind of sucks. It's going to be a 9-degree feel. It's going to be difficult to throw the ball, but you still have to find a way. You got to find a way to get the ball to Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and Emeka Egbuka, because if you can maximize them, they won't be able to guard them. There's no way Tennessee can guard them. If you have a good offensive game plan, Tennessee is not stopping them. They're just not. There's no way, and it's just big for Ryan. This game is almost as big of a Ryan Day game as I've ever seen.
Yeah. There's not really many places many things to say about that. It's just, do they have a good game plan, and do they go out and execute the game plan? Because there are many ways Ohio State could win this football game, and there's probably a couple ways where they could lose this game. But when you've looked at it in the past, you're like, you just can't let the moment get too big,
Right.
And we'll see how that plays out. Ohio State's favored by 7. 47.5 is the total points. How do we feel about it, Brady? You got Ohio State winning, covering? What do you think?
I'm gonna go with Ohio State for the win. 20 to 14. Low scoring game.
Low scoring. All right. I'm going to go Ohio State win as well. I'm going to go a little higher scoring. I think it's going to be 31-24. I think it's going to be a lower, obviously like a lower scoring, like kind of slugfest in the first half, but I think both teams will kind of figure it out offensively right out of the gate in the second half.
Yeah.
I think we'll just make enough plays down the stretch in the fourth quarter to win the game. So I'll say 31-24. Ohio State wins to cap off the first round of the playoffs. And again, hopefully, I went chalk pretty much this first round. I'll say that Brady with those 2 early upsets with 11 and 10 winning those games.
Right.
But yeah, it should be a fun one. This will be a fun weekend of football. Hopefully everything plays out the way that us Buckeye fans want it to and everything else. But it's going to be fun to see so many big games being played, for college football and everything else. And be back the following week to break down the quarterfinal matchups. Boise State, Arizona State, Oregon, and Georgia sitting back and waiting to see who their matchups are going to be. And it should be a fun one. But again, that's Brady King. I'm Chase Younts. We'll see you guys next time.